Can you email it to someone and
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm clicking on photo album and it's not allowing me to enter it. So why doesn't somebody just give me their text number or something or their email and I can do that right away for the whole group.
happy to?
Okay, Joe Schwartz, I got yours. Let me text it to you. Thank you, Joe. Give me 1 second, everybody. Camera. Okay, Joe, let me know if you got that. You there, Joe? Let me look for you.
Figure out how to get it from my phone onto the chat here.
Or I could just email it to you. Is that the easier way to do it?
You can email it to, yeah, I'll give you my email address. That'd be easier.
Okay, let me try that right now. Okay, why don't you check your email, Joe?
Okay, still waiting.
Okay, in the meantime, I'll give it a little intro. So sorry again about all this
Okay.
waiting. Not fun for me or for you. Okay, so we are about to embark on a process of learning how to chant Torah. Oh, it looks like I have some people who were with me last time coming back for more. Good. And for those of you who've been in shul, either recently or throughout your life, you've noticed that when people get up in front of the community and read out of the Torah scroll, they're not just improvising or singing random tunes. There is a set cadence, and that is all based on what we call the tropes. So in other words, there's a finite, limited set of melodies. And once you can get into that lexicon of melodies and know the symbols that are associated with each melody, you can chant the Torah in the traditional way. Now, I should also, as a caveat, say that there's not one scientific exact trope methodology. What we're learning is an Ashkenazic melody, based on European style stuff. There are many different Ashkenazi versions, but most of them are generally just permutations of one sort of basic set of melodies. So somebody from Poland may do it a little bit differently than someone from Lithuania, may do it a little bit differently from someone in Ukraine, but it's all kind of in the similar mode. We call it pentatonic. It's sort of cheery sounding, right? You've noticed that a little on the more happy side than the Haftarah, which is a little bit sadder sounding. Now, you've got the bailiwick of Ashkenazi, but if you look at the Mizrahi, the way it's chanted in the countries from, the Jews who live in the Arab countries, it's based on their scales, their makam, their musical taste, and it would sound altogether different than what we're going to learn. And then you've also got the way that they do it in England. You've got the way that they did it in Spain, which is related to how they do it in England. So there are many, many iterations. Just like if you go to many shuls, you may hear different versions for a lot of the tefillot. Shema is chanted differently. The Amidah, every prayer has many, many permutations. This stuff's been around for a while. So just to be clear, what I'm teaching you is an version of Ashkenazi. It's not the proven one. It's just going to be the one that I had learned, when I started to do the tutoring. Although when I was a child, I did something that was like 90% the same. So sometimes people come and they have, because they had B'nai Mitzvah years and years ago, they do things a little bit differently and they kind of hybridize things. So I would say in general, for the purposes of this class, it's important to try to learn the melodies I'm teaching you, not because I think mine are superior to what your bar mitzvah taught you or your instructor taught you. It's just for consistency's sake. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, terrific. So trope. This word is not a uniquely Jewish word. In fact, if you go to the Catholic Church, the singing that they do is called troping, and the idea is similar. If you look at the Latin text of some of their prayers, their cantor, same tune, same name, nomenclature for the person who chants, also has little symbols on certain phrases, and those are a set of finite melodies which represent the tune he's supposed to be putting on each word. So let me clarify something else. There is a difference between the Torah scroll and what we call the Chumash, the book that we look at from the pews. Who can tell us in brief what the big difference is between the two? Razel.
The Chumash has nikudot, or vowels, and the Torah doesn't. And the Torah doesn't have the tropes either.
Right, that's two of the things. Those are two major things, and there are a few more things that are absent in the Torah scroll too. Does anybody else know?
Mhm.
The script is
No.
different.
The script is different. That's one thing. It's calligraphy in the Torah scroll.
The scroll
All right.
isn't
Yeah, go ahead.
the scroll isn't broken up into verses and chapters.
Good. So punctuation is missing too. They use the colon instead of the period in the Chumash. So when you're in the pews, you see that. You also see verse numbers. At a certain point, they started to assign chapters and verses to the Torah. So everything is absent from the Torah scroll other than consonants. In fact, in the old days, there weren't even breaks between letters. As I understand it, the Hebrews were the first to actually put spaces between words in a stroke of genius, which seems, of course, so natural to us, but is actually somebody had to stop and go, wait a second, it's a little bit hard to read when it's all pieced together. So the process is like this. You learn from the Chumash, and you guys were in Hollywood, so you know the term off book and on book. You know, when you're in a play, you learn it from the book, and then when you go on stage, maybe you do your dry run with the book, and then at a certain point, the drama teacher says, close the books, we're off book today, and you go for it, and you hope for the best. So that's the same concept here. We are going to be learning it with all the information in front of us. The tropes, which are the musical notation system that we're going to embark upon learning. The vowels, which, by the way, didn't exist when Hebrew was invented. Vowels are a much later addition, as are tropes. The punctuation, the verse numbers, commentary, translation, it's all missing. It's all going to be in your head. The good news for you guys is when you're doing a class like this, or when you have a bar or a bat mitzvah, you tend to spend weeks, if not months, learning a short portion. In the end, you're going to be in the shower singing it. You're not going to be able to get it out of your head. The problem is not going to be getting it in your head. It's going to be you're not going to be able to get it out of your head because you're going to be doing this ad infinitum. Because the upshot of this class is we're going to all get up there. You don't have to do this. I will not hold your feet to the fire, but we like to have a little graduation where we all take a week when there's available aliyot and you guys split it up and do it so that you have a carrot at the end of the stick. So I don't just have to beat you with a stick. I can dangle it in front of you. So anyway, we're going to learn it on book, and then ultimately you wean yourself. And it's easier in this case, but then when you're one of those people who does it every week and you start like Thursday night or Friday night to learn, which is how a lot of experienced readers do it, you don't have that much time to memorize it. So you have to almost like visualize it and have little mnemonic devices and tricks. But that's for another day. So let me explain a little bit more about the process. The first thing is you have to be a fluent reader. By fluent, I don't mean fast, I mean accurate. Because if you learn all this music and all this notation system, but can't read Hebrew, you're still going to then have to come to me or someone else and say, hey, Hillel, make me a recording. And if I'm making you a recording and singing it, what's the point of learning anything other than just being a parrot and listening? So what I'm trying to teach you to do is deparrotize and learn how to learn it the old-fashioned way, not for the sake of being traditional, but because the aspiration should be you want to be able to open up the Chumash on your own without a teacher, without a rabbi, spoon-feeding you, and do it on your own. That doesn't mean you can't consult with me or with other people to make sure you're doing it correctly, but if you simply wanted to learn something to be a one-trick pony and read Torah for one time, you could just get a recording from me and spare all of us the aggravation. No, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to do the methodology. By the way, I will note, at least for younger people, it's amazing brain training as we all hit my age and above. It's really good to do this kind of thing. You know, our brains are less and less capable of memorizing, especially in today's society. I don't even know if kids can memorize stuff anymore. You know, I don't even know if I know my daughter's phone number. We don't need to know almost anything anymore because it's all in our pocket. So this is like amazing mental weightlifting. So multiple reasons to do it, but that's our goal. We're going to start off by making sure that everybody understands that you have to get your reading smooth. We're not going to focus on that here, but if I spend 4 weeks teaching you trope and then say fly free birds, now go take these tropes and put them to the words, and you go, I can't read the words. It's like saying you learn how to sing opera, but you just can't identify Italian letters, and it would be pointless, right? You'd then have to go back to the record and just memorize it. Is that clear to everybody that they're basically two masters you have to serve? So I can give a quick crash course in Hebrew reading, which I will do, but I'm not going to be drilling you on that. You've got to do that yourself. For those of you who feel like you don't want to raise your hand and say I'm not there yet and feel embarrassed about it, I would say there's a website called cartoonhebrew.com, and if you scroll to the bottom of the page, they have the entire alphabet, not in order, but they have the alphabet so that if you click on every letter, it has an audio file of it. It has English transliteration, and you simply go to the bottom 3 lines there, the entire alphabet with all the vowels, and you just click on every letter. You go frontwards, backwards every night for a couple of weeks, and you'll probably be at the point where you need to. Okay, Cartoon Hebrew, I think it's .com, not .net. Okay, so the purpose of the tropes today is mainly for the music. It would be possible to get up there and read the Torah. In fact, once in a while, I've had a person who was supposed to learn how to chant this, and they got up there and didn't have time to do it, and they read it, and they got up in front of the congregation. I won't cite names. They said, I'm doing this in memory of my wife's grandfather, and this is how he would have done it. He would have read it like this, and he did a spoken word thing, and I just kind of had to go like this, but man, he had some coulions, and it was pretty funny. But anyway, I've never seen another person do it in my career. You don't want to be reading this, you want to be singing it. That's what tropes are for. When tropes started, they were not invented for music, however. They were grammatical markings. Okay, this is, again, predates punctuation. There is one trope, a melody, which indicates the symbol which indicates a period, called an etnachta. One is a comma. Sorry, the etnachta is a comma. Sof pasuk, which literally means end of the sentence, would be a period. And then the other ones are basically just syntax markers, which show you how to cluster phrases together. Because we all know if you put the period and the comma in the wrong place, you could literally make the sentence mean the opposite of what it means. Because if there's a sentence and the next word is not or no, starting the other sentence after it, and there's a period after the no, you think the no negates everything that came to it. So it's important when you do the Bible, when you read, to cluster the phrases together, right? So that people have some semblance of the meaning. So that's what it was intended for. Over the course of time, they associated melodies with it. And now just about everything that we do in the service has music. It makes it much more pleasurable. It adds some drama to it. So multiple purposes. A final thing that the tropes help us with is accenting, syllable stressing. Do you guys know what I mean by that?
Yes.
Saying some Hazan. Okay. So in short, in every language, there's always one vowel in every word that gets the emphasis. Sometimes there can be what you call a secondary stress too. You could say like Philadelphia. It's the E in the syllable del that gets the main emphasis, but fit gets the secondary. So anyway, the trope always is placed upon the letter that gets the primary accent. So if I were to say Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, which is how, of course, some of the Orthodox guys read it, that's actually not correct as far as accenting, is it? Is it Baruch? How do we say that word?
Baruch.
Baruch. The accent is on the last syllable. In Hebrew, if you're going to gander to guess, always put the accent on the last syllable. You're usually going to be right. But especially in poetic Hebrew, and the Bible has a lot of poetry, they suddenly shift the accent to the front of the word. So some words that can be usually accented at the end, like Baruch, in a poem, it could say Baruch Oseh Bereshit. You can suddenly shift it. So when you're chanting from the Torah, your primary obligation is, well, let's see if you guys know this. There are two gabbais standing next to you. For some people, that's comforting. For most people, that's threatening. A lot of times at IKAR, they're like professional fake wrestling referees. They stand there and just pretend to be doing something, and they call no foul. But anyway, what are they supposed to intercede for? Who knows? Let's see. Ariella.
They're supposed to correct you when you misspeak or mischant?
Well, the first thing you said is more accurate. It's supposed to only be, look, if you're an expert, you're probably going to get corrected for everything, because the idea is if you're like a veteran, you want to do it correctly. You want to get every jot and tittle. But for the average reader, if you mispronounce a word such that the meaning changes, you're supposed to correct it. The word Adonai, which is, of course, the tetragrammaton, God's name, has the letters Yud, He, Vav, He. Most of you have probably seen that. There's a common Hebrew word, which is Yihiyeh, will be. And that's the word that Adonai is derived from the same root. He who was, he who is, and he who will be. A lot of people who read this will say Yihiyeh instead of Adonai or vice versa. That would be a foul that the referee should call. You don't want to accidentally say God's name when you're not supposed to, and not say it when you're supposed to. Sometimes there are people who are a little overzealous and they'll correct things which don't change the meaning, you know, like El and Al. In the context, El means to, Al means on, but the reader generally knows that you're talking about some kind of a preposition. You don't need to do it. But again, if I was reading, they'd nail me for it. If you guys are reading and I'm next to you, I probably would not say anything at that point unless you got stuck. The other thing that Gabbai does is they help you. If you get stuck and need a little whisper, they help you. Technically, if you sing the melody wrong, they are not supposed to intercede unless you don't sing the melody for the end of the sentence, for the reason that I stated. If you don't end the sentence in the proper place, in theory, it could create confusion as to the meaning, so they would only correct that. But anyway, we're not going to stress about corrections. We're really just there to help. This is like, you know, when people are new to reading Torah, it's you're treated like it's like in minor league. We're trying to encourage you and help you, not show that we know the Torah by heart and lord it over you. Okay, so how are we going to learn? We're going to have these sessions together. I'm going to go over certain things, and then I'm going to ask you guys over the course of the week to practice them such that for the next week you've mastered some of the melodies, and then we can go on and learn the next set of the melodies. Most people need to practice 15 to 30 minutes each day, unless we have a hidden Mozart here in the community who can just listen over the course of this lesson and perfect everything. God bless you. I gain nothing, and the Jewish world gains nothing if you slave over this. But if you really want to err on the side of caution here, I would say you have to understand that just sitting here with me for one session a week is not going to be the panacea. You have to commit some time to it. That's A. B is once you learn this, if you don't get out there, get in the game, and play the game over and over, you're going to forget this, and you're going to not solidify it. So if your hope is to do this for the long term, you can't just do it one time and step away for a year and assume that it's all going to be up there. If you were 13, you have a better chance of it, but the rest of us, less likely. So hopefully we're all committed to the sweat equity we have to put in here. Yes? Good. Okay. So Joe, are you able to share that with us now?
He did.
I did. It's in the chat.
Okay, great. I can't see
You can
it,
just
but
click on it and download it from the chat.
yeah, you should download it. And I know it. I've been doing this for an embarrassingly long amount of time, so I don't have to see it. Okay, so let me explain about
You
this
want
sheet.
me to screen share it?
I don't need it. I mean, people do. If you guys feel like you want to see it up on the screen, I'm fine with that. Not a biggie. So in any event, but you can do it, Ariel, if you want to. So
Okay.
there are two columns. We all see two columns, and maybe some of you have noticed that there's some similarities. So the right column shows us the Hebrew word for the name of each trope, and then the corresponding trope is either under or over the word. So the first trope we're going to learn is called mercha. You see how the mercha is like a backward C?
Mhm.
If you read in the right column, number 1, you'll see the first word says mercha in Hebrew, and under mercha, in addition to the vowels that you've probably seen before in your life, what do you now see? The trope symbol for mercha. Same thing for the second word, which is called tipcha. The opposite of mercha, the mirror image. Okay, the tipcha is the C, and that's under the word for tipcha. Now, that's the case for the entire right column. It gives you a trope written out in Hebrew, and it's the symbol that we have to learn the name of and the melody for. Now, what do you think the left column is? Why do we have a left column? What do the boxes represent?
The words, the Hebrew words, no?
Right. So exactly. So in every box, you could put a word from the Torah, and it shows us the trope in isolation so we can focus more and be less distracted by the letters and vowels in the right column.
Mhm.
So the first trope is called Mercha, and it's got that symbol. And if you see a trope that looks like that, which is chanted like Mercha, and the word was Elohim, how do you think we would sing the word Elohim?
Elohim,
Right. You simply transfer the melody from the trope, but instead of saying the name of the trope, you say the word. Now, the most common verse or pasuk in the Torah is like Vayomer Adonai El Moshe Lemor, and God spoke to Moses saying. Oftentimes it's with the tropes Mercha Tibcha, Mercha Sof Pasuk, Vayomer Adonai El Moshe Lemor. So you would have each one of the tropes in group 2 under the words. Now you will notice that sometimes a trope may be a long trope and it can go into a short word. Conversely, there can be a short trope on a long word, and you'll learn how you basically either stretch them out or compress them to make it fit. Okay, that's going to happen sort of intuitively, but we'll get into that later. Any questions so far before we start to dig in to the tropes themselves? No.
This
Okay.
may be a question that would be for the, I mean, this may be not covered by you at all. The issue is if you don't, you can read Hebrew, but you don't have a full understanding of what you're reading. I'm wondering about the challenge of memorizing portions, and I wonder how that's handled. I understand that may not be under the purview of this course, but
well, the question's under the purview, and I'll answer it as follows. I've tutored thousands of kids, including Rosa's son 10 million years ago. Most of my students do not have a fluency with Hebrew. Some were day school kids, some were not. The average person probably would understand something between 5 and 15% of biblical Hebrew, zero impediment. Just like a Polish person can learn Italian opera, etc., etc. It's nice to know what you're saying. It gives it added meaning. It will not slow you down. You should, when you have an aliyah, of course, read the translation beforehand. But I do not think that meaning is tied to brain memory as much as music is.
okay.
That is to say, if you have a good musical ear, or if you listen to this a lot, just like if you hear a song, like the Macarena, none of us knew what the hell they were saying, but we go, like, we all know the melody, right?
Right.
And if the words were in front of us, we could sing it, even though we have no clue what we're saying. So that's the analogy I would give. So I encourage you, yes, it's amazing to have a long-term goal of speaking Hebrew, or at least reading it and understanding it. But no, if we were to want to embark upon that, we would have to probably take 6 months and do 0 tropes at all.
No,
So
I didn't expect you to. I just wondered, because
yeah,
actually
that was a good question.
I can do Haftorah trope, but I was taught incorrectly. So, but I can do
Okay.
sight reading, but I can't, I want to really learn the correct way. But for Torah, when I tried to do it in the past, it was much harder because there's no trope or nikudot in the
Yeah,
Torah. So,
right.
so just wondering. So I guess it's really down to a matter of memorizing with the music helping you along.
Correct. Music, from my experience, is like 90% of how things stay in our brains. In fact, it's counterintuitive because most kids think, well, I'm going to learn the name of the trope and I'm going to learn the symbol, but man, I'm not a musician. I'm never going to sing it. What happens in 2 weeks? The whole class knows all the melodies without doing any homework because it just sticks in your brain, and nobody for 4 months can ever remember what that squiggly that looks like this is called. So my suggestion to you is the music side of it. You can almost zone out in the car and put the recording I'm going to give you on, and that's going to stick fast. What you need to put in like frontal lobe active time doing is looking at these sheets, looking at the symbols, writing them, using your hands to emulate them, to force them in your brain. That
As I
generally
said,
will take
I know
longer.
Haftorah trope, even though I was taught not totally correctly. So I do know what you're talking about. I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is for the rest of the people who have not
Okay.
known this before. Okay, so the second
have a
column is, of course, sorry, go ahead.
I have a quick question. It's mostly cultural, I guess, but when you just recited that last trope, that little melody, it occurred to me that sometimes you will hear a rabbi speaking to you or giving a class, a shiur, and then he'll launch into a melody. He's talking in English, but he'll launch into a melody, sort of like, and then you're going to go to the store, and then you're going to da 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 da. And so it occurred to me, when he is doing that, or when someone does that, are they using an official melody, an official trope that is in their reserves?
I think that what you're talking about comes from how Talmud is taught in Cheder, not from Torah reading. But so when you do it in yeshiva, that's how they read through the Talmud. So it is, not an official, you wouldn't notate it, but it's just sort of the cadence that you hear in Jewish study.
Okay.
That's why you heard it from the rabbis. Okay, so anyway, this sheet of tropes is organized from the most common trope groups to the least common trope groups. The good news is, if you know groups 1, 2, and 3, you can probably chant 60% to 65% of the Torah tomorrow. So we've got our meat and potatoes, and nearly every single sentence will have permutations of groups 1, 2, and 3. Everything else on the page starts to happen with lesser and lesser frequency, and generally has more and more notes, and is a little bit more interesting, adds more flourishes, adds more drama, but will be used less and less. Okay, another point. This sheet has lots of tropes duplicated, and I'll explain why in a second. But what that means is that when you look at all 14 groups and it looks like, oh my God, there are a lot of tropes, put it this way, you only have to learn about 50% of what you see, because once over is doubled. And the reason we double is because we've clustered tropes on this sheet into groupings that they most commonly come in. So the first group is Mercha Tipcha Munach Et Nachta. That's the most common group. The second group is Mercha Tipcha Mercha Sof Pasuk. There's only one new trope in the entire second group, which is the end of the sentence, which is the musical period. So we could have just done Sof Pasuk in isolation, or whoever compiled this sheet, but instead of doing that, we cluster them with tropes that come together. Okay, so this is not going to be as daunting as it looks. So what I want to do now is try to teach us all groups 1, groups 2, and group 3, because those are the absolute basic building blocks. Because group 1 ends with what we call et nachta, which is a comma. Nearly every sentence has a comma, right? Something that divides the thought, generally in the middle. Group 2 has the sof pasuk, which literally means end of the sentence, and literally every single sentence in the world has to have a period, has to have an ending. Otherwise, it would just go out into infinity. So it's a guarantee that some permutation of group 2 will be in every single sentence in the whole Torah. Most sentences in the Torah have pieces of group 1, and many, if not most, of the sentences in the Torah have pieces of group 3. Okay, so for the short term, I suggest when I sing the tropes, you take your hands and you imitate the symbols. It's going to help you learn it. So starting from the beginning, you can mute yourself and just repeat after me. The reason you mute is because if we all do it together, there's a delay and it's going to confuse people. And I apologize in advance. I've got a pretty nasty cold, so my voice is icky and cracky, and I'm doing my best here. Mercha. Second one, Tipcha. Munach Et Nachta. Now I'll do the first 2 tropes together. Mercha Tipcha Munach Et Nachta. Okay, now notice that the Mercha and Tipcha are mirror images of each other. Notice that the Munach is a right angle. So don't confuse the Munach with the Mercha. The Mercha, you see how it's rounded? Okay, and notice in group 1, all 4 of the tropes are under. Okay, placement means everything, because you're going to learn soon, possibly to your chagrin, that sometimes the same symbol that was under a trope in one group suddenly appears over it, and it's an unrelated, utterly new trope. Probably due to the fact that there used to be printing blocks in the old days. You'd make a symbol that looked like this, and as the tropes expanded, there used to be fewer of them, but as people, cantors, whoever invented more of these, they probably just said, let's not have to make a costly new one. Let's probably just take it, flip it, and print it over the word, and that's just a theory, but we don't know for sure. Okay, but anyway, what I'm saying to you is there's no rhyme or reason as to why some are over the word and some are under. Okay, it's just random, but still your brain has to remember which trope is over and which is under, because sometimes the same symbols are used. Great. Let's do group one more time after me. Mercha tipcha munach et nachta. Now that's group one in its entirety. You may be disappointed to learn that tropes don't have to occur in complete groupings like this sheet. I call this permutation. Sometimes instead of all four of those tropes, you will simply skip the first one and go tipcha. Try that. Munach et nachta. Here's another permutation. We skip the third trope. Mercha tipcha et nachta. One more permutation possible. We skip the first and the third and just do the second and fourth. Tipcha et nachta. So even though mathematically there are more permutations, like you could do the first one, then jump to the third and fourth, that doesn't happen in the Torah. So I just chanted for you all the possible permutations, okay? Now I believe I have a few recordings. One just matches this sheet exactly. The other one gives you the permutations. I'll probably email that one just so that your ear gets used to every possibility. Raisel, can't use your right hand. Okay, no problem. Just look, if you want to just practice later on by writing this stuff. Look, if you did Haftorah, it's the same. So Raisel, you don't have to worry about this side of it at all. Okay, great. So that's the first group. Obviously, we're gonna have to keep drilling hard on that. But what did I say was the only new trope in the second group? Let's see who's paying attention. Rosa, yeah, Sof Pasuk, I read your lips, good. Okay, Sof Pasuk means what?
Period.
Period, end of the sentence. Literally means end of the sentence. After me, and it's just like a line saying stop. Sof Pasuk.
Sof Pasuk.
Good, now randomly, the second group is also all tropes under. That's just, again, the coincidental. So you guys can mute yourselves again and repeat after me. Mercha tipcha. Mercha sof pasuk. Let's do permutations now of group two. Mercha tipcha. Sof pasuk. Now let's skip the first trope. Tipcha. Mercha sof pasuk. Now we'll just do the tipcha, the sof pasuk, the second and fourth. Tipcha sof pasuk. Okay, so now we've got probably 40% of the Torah that we could sing if we memorized the symbols. By the way, why do we need to have names for the tropes? Do we need to know the names? Anybody want to gander a response?
It's easier
Kind of a
I think it's easier to remember.
Right. It's kind of a trick question. It's for didactic purposes. Because if you do something wrong, I'm just not going to go, hey, you got the thingamajiggy wrong in group two. We want to be able to say, for next week, you have to learn tipcha better because you're off key. The nomenclature is irrelevant. If you really had an issue with the names, you could kind of learn this like this. Da 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 na 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 na. If you learned everything like that, you'd be just as successful, right? Because you'd know the two things you need to know: the symbol and the melody. When you look in the Chumash to study, it's not going to say, hello, I'm a mercha. What's it going to show you? That symbol under the word. Now, something that takes a little time to get used to is the fact that there are vowels over and under the words. And sometimes our rabbis, with their infinite wisdom, or our cantors, did things which are annoying. For example, there's a trope called tevir. It looks like a tipcha with a dot in the middle of it. Okay, there's also a vowel under a word called chirik, which makes the E sound. So sometimes it's a little bit confusing. You're going, is that a trope or is that the E vowel? And your brain's going to kind of have to learn how to separate the two, because there is a method to the madness. The trope's supposed to be like a little bit past the vowels or a little bit underneath them, and it's just going to take a minute for you guys to sort of isolate them, because it's a case of TMI. When it's like you're juggling. You know, when a juggler, if you ever seen those guys at the beach, they start with like a tennis ball, then it's 2 tennis balls, then it's 3, then the bowling ball, then the buzzsaw. And in the end, you're just like, brrr. So what happens is in the end, you're like decoding the Hebrew consonants, decoding the Hebrew vowels, identifying the trope symbol, remembering the trope name, looking at what syllable is accented, taking the melody from the trope and putting it on the trope, expanding it if there are more syllables in the word than on the trope, etc. This is all going to be second nature at some point, but for the short term, you're going to be that juggler, and every time the new thing comes, it's going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to drop all the balls, and you will. You'll drop some balls, but over the course of time, it just becomes fluid. Like, we don't think about it when we're driving a car. You're looking in the rearview mirror, you're looking at the side mirrors, you're looking at your phone. No one in this group, of course. You're looking at the car straight ahead. You're turning around and looking at the car next to you. You're doing 10 things, but what does it feel like you're doing? Sometimes I get to a place and I'm like, did I just drive here, or did I fall asleep and wake up here? You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be muscle memory in the long term. That's the hope. Okay, let's go on to the third group. So here's where things get a little confusing. So who can look at group 3 and tell me what the red flags are? What things make you go, what? Because there's several of them.
Well, first of all, there are new tropes above.
New tropes above, right? And what do the tropes above look like?
Let's see. The kadma, well, it looks like an inverted mircha.
Right. So that's a red flag. We learned that trope, but suddenly it's on top of the word and it's a different trope. So good. And there's another one, pashta, that looks the same way.
Somebody
Which
else.
brings me to the next point. Yeah. That there are 2 tropes in group 3 which look very similar. The first one, kadma, and the third one, pashta, but they're 2 different tropes. So that's another red flag. Anybody else want to bring up a red flag? Well, this one you wouldn't really know till I sang it, but the munach trope.
Yeah.
Right. There is a trope in group 3. Look at the second to the last trope in group 3, munach. Where did we have munach before? Group 1. But it's chanted differently now. So one thing you should know, munach is a trope I call it the chameleon trope, because its melody is kind of determined by what it's next to. It changes its color. It's basically a connective tissue between other sort of more important tropes, you could say, generally. But anyway, munach, the melody of munach is always determined by the group that it's in or the cluster that it's in. So you're going to always have to pay attention. If you were just to put on blinders and look at munach, you'd have no idea how to sing it. There are probably 6 melodies for it. It sounds confusing, but your brain actually, believe it or not, and thankfully, absorbs the tropes like a little mini song. And so it's like piano. When you go da 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 da, your brain goes dum bum da 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 da. But if you just saw 2 notes, bum bum, you'd be like confused. What is this from? I have no idea. Same idea with tropes. Your brain absorbs it as a little song. Okay, so after me, group 3, starting with kadma.
Kadma.
You can mute yourselves. It's okay. Mapa.
Mapa.
Gotta mute yourselves. Pashta. Munach. Katon. Let me do those again. Group 3, first trope. Kadma. Mapa. Pashta. Munach. Katon. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some more of these red flags. So, as I mentioned, the first trope, kadma, looks like the third trope, pashta. The visual difference is pashta always comes on the last letter of the word. Kadma always comes on any other letter. So somewhere more in the middle or the front of the word. Now, we use a program called Trope Trainer. Of course, they just stopped making it, so I'm not sure if you guys can get access to it, but it's a great program because it differentiates between these quirky tropes that have similarities but are also different. For example, it makes pashta, which is the third trope, bold-faced. So it's always going to be in the last letter regardless, but that's a little confusing. It's easier when you just see a thick trope and you go, that's pashta. The kadma is still skinny like it is. Now, I said that pashta always comes on the last letter. Do you remember earlier I talked about accenting words? What did I say about where tropes come? Anyone remember? I said that the trope always lands on the letter that gets the accent. So if Rosa's name was to have a trope on top of it, the O would have the trope. It would either be over the O if it was a trope that always comes over, or under if it was under. But if you're regardless always putting the pashta on the last letter, it would be on the A. Does that mean we should sing your name Rosa? No, we would still go Rosa, but the idea is the editors have to figure out a way to show you where do we accent it. What do? They gray out the one at the end, and they bold faced the one. They put a second pashta there over the O on the syllable that's supposed to be accented. So most people would think, oh, I'm supposed to sing a kadma and a pashta because it looks like you have two. No, if you ever see what looks like the same symbol twice on a word, this is a little esoteric, but one of them is to tell you what the trope is. It's on the last letter, so it's a pashta, and the second one is drawn in to indicate where it's accented. Now, backing up for a second, sometimes I'm giving you TMI. I'm going to repeat stuff a lot, and anything that makes your head swim today, here's my suggestion: be a parrot. Even though I told you initially the whole point of this class is not to be a parrot, as far as while you're learning the tropes, it's okay to just submit and memorize. You don't have to understand now, because you're going to have your eureka moment, either tonight, either next week, either in a month, or the day before you read Torah, but you will at one point go, oh, now I get it. There's no reason to understand all the nuances now. If you were simply to go home and go, I have no idea what the hell he was talking about, clueless, but I memorized all these melodies and names and symbols, no idea what I'm doing, but I know it. You're absolutely on the same track as the person who understands every nuance that I said. So I hope that takes the burden off a little. I'm going to repeat this stuff to the point where at one point, what you do know and what you don't know will converge into be success. Okay, let's review the first three groups. And then what I'm going to do, I think, Joe, is I'll probably email you the sound files so that you can put it up for everybody again. And then you guys can put it on your phones, your iPads, and during the week, listen. This week, just because we're starting, I'm babying everybody with kid gloves, and we're just going to do the first three groups, okay? But I would hope that you guys listen as 15 minutes a night should be sufficient for only three groups, I'd say. But as we get into the second and third week, you're going to have to sort of practice for a little longer, because you're going to have to always start at the first group every night. This week it's 1 through 3. Next week it's going to be 1 through 7. The following week maybe 7 through 14. That kind of thing. Okay, get your hands out again. Mute yourselves. Mercha tipcha munach et nachta. Et nachta is what punctuation mark? Comma. Group dos. Mercha tipcha. Mercha sof pasuk. Sof pasuk is period. Good. Group 3, visually confusing but melodically not so hard. Kadma, mapach, pashta, munach, katon. So I sang the complete groups, but as I said, we have permutations. I may send you this simpler recording this week, and then next week give you the more complicated one, the permutations. It may be a little bit much to, well, let me see. Give me 1 second here to hunt in my Torah tropes. Here we go. Okay, send a copy. I don't have your email. Well, let's see if it's saved in the paste, Joe. I think I have your email. Let me see. What was it again, Joe? J-O?
mix@joes@gmail.com.
Mix. Sorry, say that again. For some reason, it's not popping up. Mix what?
At Joes, MIXATJOES @gmail.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not popping into the memory here. Mix@joes@gmail.com. Voila. Okay, let's see if that arrives, Joe.
Okay, still waiting on it.
Okay, so in the meantime, while we're waiting, does anybody have any questions about any of this? Either you're bored to tears or, oh, yeah, good, a question.
Oh. Does the third phrase have a grammatical meaning like the first two do?
So for syntax, you wouldn't necessarily say that the third group is different from the second or the third, and you know, any group wouldn't be different, but these things cluster together in such a way that, you know, if you use kadma, usually pause a little after kadma, and then mapa, pashta. So certain tropes, we call them conjunctive and disjunctive. Some tropes, you never pause after them, like da 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 da, and there's a little pause, da 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 da. So the really only thing that helps us with syntax is having your ear know which are conjunctive and which are disjunctive, meaning when you take your little breath. So it doesn't matter if you do darga tevir or munach revi'i. Those are two different pairs, both of which are conjunctive and show that the two words belong together. Like the words he said, you wouldn't go he said. So that's what the tropes do, not specific syntax, but just general syntax stuff. Hope that helps. Any other questions? All right, Joe, did you find it? Great. And did you put it up there for people? Or does everybody now have the trope sheet and the audio file? I'm seeing Raizel shaking a no. Jane is saying no. What don't we have? What you can unmute and tell me what's
I don't have
missing
the
there.
audio file. I got the trope sheet originally, but not the audio file.
It should be in the chat.
Let me
It's
look
not.
here.
The audio file I don't see in the chat.
Go to Trope.
Joe, I got Trope Trainer. I got the link to Trope Trainer, but not an audio file.
Is it
I
possible
also-
to email them to us?
The trope trainer is that I think it's no longer active, Joe, by the way. You want to put can you share? It's not a link, it's actually the file. So I don't know. Are you able
Oh,
to
sorry,
put the
I'm
file?
sorry. Here. Hold on, here it is. Sorry about that.
This goes
I
on your
forgot to
permanent
hit the
record,
send
Joe.
button.
There we go.
It's uploading now. It should be there now. Sorry.
And by the way,
All
Trope
good.
Trainer does seem to be working. It looks
Well,
like it's.
there's a new one. Oh, well, okay.
Oh.
Is this the one without the ETROP?
Yeah.
The old one was
Yeah.
TROP. Okay, so let me just let you know. I mean, I'm frustrated with this new company. It's a ripoff. They used to be one, this born again Jew did this genius job. He's like this big business guy. He becomes a born again. He goes through the whole Torah, makes the greatest program ever. Shows you every nuance, audio of every melody, boldface, not boldface. He like passes away. His like kid tries to keep it going, can't really pull it off. The whole thing folds. Now this other company swoops in, takes the E off the word trope, makes everybody think. I wrote them and I said, this new program is really pretty lame. It doesn't have all the stuff. We have the best program in the world now. I'm like, this is they said it's much better than the old one. It's much worse than the old one. I have the old one on my computer. The problem is I cannot, share the program with anybody. However, if we all did our readings, for those of you who I hope will do the reading at the end, like I said, I can give you screenshots of mine, which will help you. But for purposes of learning, I cannot, in good conscience, tell you to do Trope Trainer. You used to be able to buy the old one, Trope TROPE trainer, and it was like a low cost. Like the one on your cell phone was like literally $19. It was incredible. This guy now makes you pay something like $40 a month for this not as good thing. So I say don't get that one.
Ugh.
If you can find the old Trope Trainer one from a friend and copy it to your hard drive, God bless. But that's funny. Quick anecdote. Like my brother, he once went to see the Phantom of the Opera, and he's at a dinner theater. And he's all excited, and then the first song comes on. He's like, "I don't know that one." Second song, like, "I don't know this one either." Then he's like, "Something's fishy here." Then he looks down at the playbill, and it says "The Phantom of the Opera" by Murray Yeston. The word "the." was put there. The real one's called Phantom of the Opera. He went to see the Phantom of the Opera, paid all the money, and got a
Oh, no.
crappy show.
Oh,
So
God.
by analogy, that's what you will get if you get TROP trainer. Okay, anyway, apologies again for the long wait here and the anticlimactic entrance.
So,
But anyway,
Hillel,
yeah,
it's TROP trainer.
that's the thumbs down. That's the Murray Yeston version of Phantom of the Opera.
So what's the one that you
Look,
recommend?
it's TROPE, but they don't sell it anymore. And the only way to really get it is to like find somebody who has it and yank it off their computer.
I had it for decades on my phone and I just eliminated it to
Yeah.
the room. Oh God.
Well, what I did was I got a new phone and like it wasn't
Yeah.
supporting the old one. I was like, oh my God, like this is I do this every day. It was so frustrating to me because now there's nothing as good. So again, when you guys learn your portions, like I'm happy to screenshot and give it to you, but you know, that's not the same thing. So, you know, you'll have to just make your own decisions here. But circling back, I did tell you the website Cartoon Hebrew. For those of you who feel like you need the reading goose, I strongly suggest you put in 15 minutes a night on that simultaneously. Otherwise, for our final class or two, when we take all these tropes that we've learned and do what we need to do, which is put it into the text of the Torah, you're not going to have a lot of luck. So what we have to be able to do is read through basic Hebrew so that you can then go off on your own and start to practice a generic portion. And then after that, we will pick a date and you'll each be assigned a specific portion to do. Yes, Rachel.
I see now the audio file, but I don't know how to download that. I mean, is there a,
I think you just drag it on your desktop, right, Joe?
oh,
If
really?
you-
That's all?
If you hover over it, there should be a download arrow that appears in the upper right corner of the,
Okay, okay.
and then just click that and it will download.
Oh, my computer had water spilled on it, so it's not working that well, but thank you.
Is anybody else having trouble with this? Because if so, we could always I could give
I
the
am. Pick them on
Yeah.
an
Susan.
iPad. I'm on an iPad and it says download, but you can't direct it where to download to on the iPad.
Mine doesn't download, unfortunately.
Are you guys on an email thread together, or is that just through the office that you RSVP? Because I can also have the office.
Office, yeah.
RSVP through the office.
Either that, or if you know, or if somebody here wants to, whatever, you know, make a group email thing, and then you know, get it to me or get it to Joe. We can just email people things as need be. Like they didn't give me. I couldn't even log in, let alone have a list of who was going to be attending. I apologize, but we're going through. We have a new assistant coming tomorrow, so
Well, I will
Three cheers.
log in next week early, make sure everybody gets in.
Thank you.
that's great. And Ariella, do you have my number just in case? You know, you may have. I don't know if you have it or not.
Why don't you give it to me?
Yes. Well, you want to just write this down, or should I just
Yep.
do it in the? Yeah, 310
Yep,
621
yep.
5136. Yeah, so if there's ever a problem, just call me. But
That's
I'm glad you were here.
621
5136.
36. Yep. Because I'm assuming that tomorrow when I'm doing eGabai, I will make sure that this is
It's
on
someone else tomorrow. But oh yeah, you can do it if I'm
No.
not there tomorrow. I'm there too. They switched me to Tuesdays, so
Yeah, but what I'm
oh
saying,
yeah, for
when I get on Friday, I will make sure that Trope is down there, and then it's a piece of cake because I do it every
great.
Friday.
Very grateful to you for doing that, and thank you, Joe, for posting. And nice to meet everybody
And
here.
if everybody wants to put their email in the
Oh
chat.
yeah, can
I
we do
can
that
have-
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do that so she can screenshot it, and then we're going to need that because later on we're going to be like picking a date. We got to make sure that most people are free that date, and then we got to divvy up the portions, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that requires the whole group to consent to. What was I going to say? Oh, so I know that I was late getting in, but so you're saying that this did start at 8? Were there people who came and then vanished, or we don't know?
we don't know because we were all stuck in the waiting room. But
So you were waiting too. Okay, so that's a problem. So we may have lost. Oh God.
well, I know that there were two people in Rabbi Amy Ariel's Hebrew class that wanted to be here, so I will include them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there were supposed to be 20 people on Monday, then we moved it to here. I just don't know how many we lost. So this is going to be a little problematic if they all have to start from scratch. So I don't know. I'll figure something out. But anyway, so put in that time. Like I said, the
Yeah.
listening part can be mindless. The learning the names and the symbols cannot. Sound good?
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
Um,
Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Peace out.
Aleichem.
Great to see you.
Bye-bye.
Hillel, are you
Yeah.
going to send us the recording from today?
Recording of the class.
Or no?
Oh boy, I couldn't even log in, Ariella, let alone you're asking me to lift
It
above my
was
weight class
recorded.
here. I don't know if they recorded it.
It
It
is
did
Yeah.
because
Seems to
that's
be
what
no
I got
day.
message
It
that
said it was
being
recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Big Brother's got it, so ask him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be on YouTube. Who knows?
Well,
I don't know. I would have showered, but okay.
I'll check in with the office about that,
I'm good. I'm
Hillel,
good.
and then
Thank,
send it to everybody if I can get it.
thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. All right,
Welcome.
folks.
Bye.
Thank you, Hillel, and thank you,
Thank
you,
Ariella,
Hillel.
for stepping
Good
up to the
night.
plate to admin.
My
you,
pleasure.
Hillel.
Bye, Jane. Bye,
Nice
everybody.
to
Good
see you.
night.
Bye.
Study
Bye.
next week.
See
Okay,
you.
study hard. Bye.